All right. Hello, all. Okay. Hope you guys can see me okay. Hope you guys can see my screen okay. I'm doing this set of videos for my good buddy Vivek Ramachandran over at Pentester Academy, Security Tube. He asked me to knock out some videos for him, and for that guy, man, I'll do anything for that guy. He's such a good friend. Um, so I thought it would be a good class just for my group and for your group too. Uh, so, so all strategic set guys, hey, it's good to see everybody. This is actually a live class that I'm video recording, not like the last set where I just recorded. So you may see me answering questions from students that are currently in the class right now, but I put everything in the uh, Pentester Academy slide format. We'll still use my pastebin like when I normally teach, but like I said, you might see me from time to time having to answer questions from students that are live in class right now. But let's get rolling. Okay, I really like doing log file analysis, really just right at a command prompt. And when I see a lot of people who use things like Splunk and ELSA and all these other GUI-based tools, not that those tools are bad, I really think they're good. I'll probably even do a set of courses on those types of products like Splunk and ELSA. But I think I think it's really good to start with some regular command line basics. And hopefully this helps you. So let's try this. I'll show you an exercise that I normally do for my students. Okay, I'm putting on the microphone. Sorry guys, did all this and forgot to get mic'd up. Okay, so I got my mic on. All right, so here's a quick exercise that I normally do for my students. So here's an example of a log file, and it's a Cisco PIX log file. Pretty nasty log file, right? And one of the things I run into is I get students all the time who are like, hey, Joe, can you help me with incident response, forensics? I want to get into that side of the world. And I think it's because they watch way too much NCIS. It's not what you think it is. When they finally kind of get into the world and they get faced with a huge thing of logs, it's kind of where the time to separate the men from the boys. This is some nasty stuff. So I'm hoping that I can give you something that'll help you out. So let's try this. I know this is going to look really stupid, but I'm hoping that it kind of sets your mind for how you want to deal with logs. So let's say I'm looking at this log, and in this case you guys can see that this is a Cisco PIX log file. And it's from an investigation I did a long time ago. You can see 2006. Good God, I don't want to claim that I've been doing this stuff that long, but the simple truth is, yeah, I have. So this is a Cisco PIX log file, and you can see that I did a find replace on it. So it's customer PIX, right? Attacker IP, the access URL, here's the target IP, and then here's where it went, right? So as you look through this log file, you see that there's a whole lot of nastiness all through it. But what I would tell you to do is I would try to put this in some context. Hopefully this helps you. If you need to look at a log file, the first thing you want to do is reduce the noise. Here's what I mean. If I see this text here, 189 November 11, 2006, do you see that this text repeats itself for the whole log file? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that text, paste it right in here, and I'm going to do a find replace on that text. And I'm going to replace it with nothing. Then, if you look here, you see that you've got this whole section from here all the way to here. where it's the exact same thing all the way down. All the way down. So I'm going to do the same thing there. I'm going to take this whole blob and I'm going to do another find replace. The concept is reduce the noise. If I have something in a log file, or anything for that matter, but if I have something and it never changes, then there's no point in me looking at it, because it's just more crap for me to sift through. So your first thing is reduce the noise. Now watch what I'm going to do. As I go through this, you're going to see that every time I find a directory, I start separating this text. So if you look at this now, you can see, okay, so at 358.48, he went to Oz images, 1558.49, Oz images, icons folder. Okay, now you see him go for Oz configuration, Oz config, config.php. Look at the time difference. 6 seconds later, 5 seconds later, 13 seconds later, right? Nearly 30 seconds later. Okay, that's somebody by hand. That's somebody by hand. If it were an automated tool, it would be in rapid succession, right? Like literally several requests during the same second in some cases, right? So 6, 7, 8, 13, 15 seconds apart, 30 seconds later, that's somebody by hand. So we've already figured out this is a real attacker. If we keep going down, we keep looking through the logs, we'll keep seeing that the same thing is happening, right? 9 seconds, 13 seconds, 16 seconds, 31 seconds, 38 seconds, 46 seconds, 20 seconds later, right? So you can see that the guy's like, okay, well, let me try T attachments. Let me try T equals templates. Let me try settings ... No, that didn't work. Let me try ... settings. No, that didn't work. Let me try ... Etsy password. No, that didn't work. Let me try Etsy password with a null byte at the end. This is a null byte. And he goes, no, that didn't work. So we try some more stuff. Then you see him do a remote file include, right? So here's this database call, but it points to a remote site. So this is him trying to download a file from a remote site. Okay, looks like it's a CGI computer science Kent.edu, so Kent State. Okay, and now it looks like this default language stuff is working, because you see this ... Etsy password stuff is working, and it's working everywhere. See this? In other words, he keeps doing it. So obviously this is working. So now I see that text. I'm going to grab that text right there, paste that in here, and we'll call this 3 directory traversal. There we go. So can you guys see what I'm doing here? See, I got a little space. I'm going to put a space right here as well. So this is going to be replaced with this. Okay. Do that. Make that 3 spaces as well. We'll do a nice little find replace there. So as we start getting down onto these logs, we can see all these places where here's where he's doing that directory traversal attack, and it's obviously successful. We look over here and we can see all these commands. So %20 is a space. So let's go to %20. We'll replace that with a space, right? So now we get down in here and we can see the actual commands that the attacker is running. So here we can see he's doing an ls. Here we can see he's doing a uname-a, finger trying to get a list of users, ls .. /, ls-la .. ls-la .. again. Now he's doing a wget, and it looks like he's trying to pull down an R57 web shell. Okay, cat config.php. So now we can actually see the attacker driving around. Okay, here's him stealing the WordPress credentials. Here's him trying to read the password file. Here's him trying to find the people's command line history. He's probably trying to find his own. Make sure he wipes his own logs. There we go. Okay, looks like he's been messing with the password file, cat password.old. Okay. Yeah. Our attacker's having some fun on this server, isn't he? And here's our attacker yanking down his rootkit. Okay. And you can see these are all these Unix commands, right? Okay, so I show you guys that not because I'm saying this is how I want you to use, how I want you to analyze logs. The reason I'm showing you that is because I often find people when they look at log file analysis and they see this stuff, they're like, ew. They watch people and they're like, oh my God. They see you typing this kind of stuff. They're like, my God, that's crazy. But what you need to realize, and yes, guys, this is the kind of stuff you're going to be doing today. But what you need to realize is the same thing that you saw me doing with that text file. That's what you're going to be doing from a command line. The idea is to try to reduce the noise. You reduce the noise and you only want to see the stuff that's important to you. Now, you do that by using some really simple Unix commands. So the simplest of the simple Unix commands for this kind of stuff, the cat command. Cat is short for concatenate. It's how you read a file. Basically, you just say, hey, I want to see this file. So you cat the file. Grep, right? It's how you get a regular expression. And what that means is I'm looking for a particular pattern. Okay. Awk is so that you can print out columns of data. So you can say, if on my screen I see these particular columns of data and I want to print column 3, right, you can awk print that particular column, right? Sed allows you to find and replace inside of a file. So the same thing you saw me doing inside a notepad with that find replace, said the stream editor, that's what it lets you do. So you can say, every time in this file I see this, replace it with this. Sort is so that you can put stuff in numeric order or alphabetical order. And then unique. Unique is so that you can deduplicate something. So I want to remove all of the duplicates from something, or I want to count how many unique cases of this are in a file or in a whole folder. And with just these commands, I mean, the magic of Linux can really be realized here. All right, so let's jump right in with some Apache log file analysis. I think the easiest thing to get started with is Apache. Now, I know people, they're like, oh my God, really dealing with web server logs, that's some nasty stuff. But I really think you just need to jump right in with both feet. So what I want you to do is we're going to go right in and wget down this log file. And when we wget down this log file, we're going to start going through a couple of the components of the log file. So the first thing that you're going to see with a log file, Apache log files are called combined log file format. So the combined log file format is the most common log file format in Apache. And you're going to have a couple of different fields. So let's jump right in and let's do it. So I'm going to get to my paste bin. And I'm going to grab this line. So I'm going to grab, now I know we're using this paste bin. Here's the current paste bin, right? Pastebin.com, capital W, capital E, capital D, lowercase w, capital P, lowercase p, CZ9. Some of these line numbers might be different by the time you get to the paste bin. The reason is because I'll probably be editing this paste bin a little bit more, but the line numbers will be fairly close. Okay. All right, so wget is short for webget. Webget. We're going to yank down this access log, and this is an access log from one of my web servers. So I'm on my handy dandy computer. Let's yank down this log file. Whee! All right. Okay, now, if I want to do an ls, I just want to show what's in this directory. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an ls, and I'm going to grep for the word log. So do an ls, but only show me things that have the word log in them. That's what grep is for, pattern matching, right? If I want to cat a file, if I want to cat this particular log file, that's how I read the log file. So here's the problem with that. Right? Now I might wc-l that access log, right? And say, hey, wc is for word count, -l, the number of lines. So I got 11,756 lines in this log file. And believe it or not, that's actually a small log file. So you're like, ugh, I am not feeling this bad boy today, right? So what we want to do is we want to start asking ourselves a couple of things. Remember we talked about that awk? So what I want to do with awk is let's go ahead and awk, and right here, awk, and I want to print field 6. So I want to print field 6, sort it, unique it, and sort it again. Now you're looking at that and you're like, okay, well, what did that do for me? It still looks like gibberish. Actually, hold on, let's take a look at it. So in this case, right here, for each one, I'm getting the count and the user agent. You see it? The user agent is what web browser they came to my server with. And this number over here is how many times I saw that. Okay, so you can see some Linux people came to my machine. Okay, Mozilla, Windows NT 6.1, and they're on Firefox. Okay, here's a version of .NET. So you're starting to see how many people. Now these are all the people who came one time. Now as we jump down here, you're going to start to see that the numbers get bigger. See, somebody came 19 times, 18 times, 17 times. Okay, so all we're looking at here are what are called user agents. Now, when I first started doing this command line stuff, I had a tough time picking this up. So what I used to do is I would log into our Unix box, and I'm going to do what I'm going to show you right now. Look at a previous person's command, and I'm going to backspace through it. So right here, I'm going to backspace through up to the pipe command. The pipe command are these right here. So I'm going to backspace through that last sort-fr, and it's going to leave me with this unique-c. So now I run it. Okay, I see what happened. That sort-fr put these in numerical sort. You see how this one's 223 times, this one's 12 times, this one's 11 times, this one's 13 times. These are all user agents. These are all user agents, right? But they're not numerically sorted. So, okay. Unique-c is I only want to show a count of how many times I saw each one. If I remove the unique-c, now you got them all, but they're all like flying all by. Unique-c removes all the duplicates. Can you see how from here through here, these are all duplicates, right? So I don't need to see all of them. Just for each one, tell me how many of them that there were. That's why you like to do the unique-c. Okay, and then the sort is what grouped them all together. That's why they were all grouped together. So you saw the ones that said WordPress and Strategic Sec. So now if I get rid of that sort and I'm just saying awk, give me field 1 out of this log file, give me field 6 out of this log file, here's all of the ones of the user agents. But check this out. You can learn this by ticking through these one at a time. Okay, well, hold on. What is field 1? Okay, field 1 seems to be the IP address and then the timestamp. Okay. What's field 2? Okay. Field 2 is the request and the query string. Okay, so whether it's a GET request or a POST request, and then the actual query, right? There's the query string. Okay. Let's see what field 3 is. Aha. Number of bytes transferred. Okay. Let's see what field 4 is. Aha. Okay, sometimes it's a dash. Sometimes this is probably it's either the request or the refer. It looks like that's the actual request. And let's see what we got. That was 4. Did we just do 5? 5 is what we started with, right? Okay, so sometimes there's no 5. We started with 6. There we go. Okay, 6 is the user agent. Is there a field 7? Nope, no field 7. So for me, that was a really good way to start learning this stuff when I was trying to learn it. I would just log into the Unix machine that all the older guys were using, and I would trace through their command line history, right? And then what I would do is I would run the same command, and I would just backspace through all of it to see like what they were doing. Okay. All right, so let's see. Awk field 1, print 1, that's the IP address. Print 2, right, that is the identity. That's probably the source IP. Field 3 is the user ID, if applicable. 4 and 5 is date timestamp. Awk print 9, status code. Okay, what are the status codes? That'll be like, if the request is accepted, it'll be like a 200 OK. If it's a redirect, it'll be like a 301. Like, hey, I'm asking for this page. The page that you're asking for isn't there. You need to go here to get it. That's a redirect. If you get a 404, that means the file's not found, right? You asked for this page and I don't have the page that you requested. So sometimes what you might end up doing is you might look for certain attacks by sorting by status codes, right? So for example, oftentimes an SQL injection is going to be an error code 500, right? So you may want to sort by these error code 500s, and just out of the ones that are error code 500s, look for whatever it is you want to look for. Okay. Let's try some other stuff. Okay, so, yep. 2 is the request line, 4 is the referrer, 6 is the user agent. All right, so I found a pretty cool website that had a bunch of one-liners for Apache. I thought this was pretty cool. I thought that was really pretty cool. All right, so let's run through some of these one-liners. I really thought this was cool. Top 20 URLs from the last 5,000 hits. Okay, so with Linux, you have a command called head, so I can head the access log, and that gives me the first 10 lines of it, right? I can tail the access log. That gives me the last 10 lines of it. Now you can head -3, let's see, I'll head -2, right? The access log. So that's 2 lines. Same thing, I can tail -2, right? I want the last 2 lines. So head, however many lines I want, tail, however many lines I want. So head from the beginning of the file, tail from the end of the file. So you see that this command starts with tail 5,000. Okay, so give me the last 5,000 lines of this log file. Okay, the / lets you know that the log is in the current directory. So I'm in the log file folder right now, or wherever the log file is at, and I say, okay, let me get the last 5,000 lines of this log, and let me get field number 7. Let me sort it, unique it, and count them. Sort them with a numeric sort, and then give me the first 20 lines of those, right? So in other words, with that numeric sort, it's going to put the number with the highest hits at the top, and then you're saying, show me the top 20 of those. So what are the top 20 URLs requested out of the last 5,000 lines? Okay, so can you see here, right? That's So You Want to Be a Pen Tester free webinar. Look, 322 requested for that. 309 for this WP admin. This is when a lot of people were trying to do the WordPress admin resets on my web server. Okay, 231 cases for /feed. That's when people were reading my RSS feed. Okay, this is number of requests to my WordPress theme. Okay, 85 Hack It in Paradise. All right, 70 for my contact form. Okay, 67 for this file. Whole lot for this cascading style sheet. Ultimate short codes, 59. You see how they're all sorted by the number of times? And then people trying to grab my Python courseware. And then a lot of people trying to read my robots.txt file. Oh, you bad hackers, you must be trying to see if I have stuff that I'm hiding from Google. All right, so this one's tricky. All right, so you're going to do the same thing. This is another way of saying the same thing. So I'm going to say, okay, I want column 7. So for every line in column 7, print that line, right? Then you notice everything is the same. See this sort, RN, head. Okay, so this whole little trick right here is another way of doing this. Okay, and the freak is for frequency, right? So it's just a way of doing like a unique -C and sorting. It's just a way of doing that. And for every case, that's what this print is. You want to print that index of it. Okay, so it's just another quick way to do the exact same thing. Bam. Okay, so this is going to make you look really uber nerdy down at the job when the guys are seeing you and they're like, my God, this dude is like beast mode. Okay. All right, so what's up with this one? Okay, now we said tail is going to be the last 5,000 lines. Okay, access log, awk f, right? So it's going to be, the field separator is going to be a space and one character. I still want the same thing out of column 7, right? Sort it, unique it. So it looks like you don't want post requests. You don't want post requests. So maybe you know that the post requests are doing like a form update or a login or something like that on your server. So you want to do all of this, but you don't want post requests. Did you guys notice that that like really compressed the amount of stuff that I just showed right here? Right, if I up here, I'm going to do this, right, there's only 20 lines, right, as opposed to the other thing I did before that, right? Oh no, there's still the same 20 lines. Okay. Guess all that stuff was GET request. Okay. Here's one. We call these top talkers. Okay, so I'm going to do the exact same thing, right? But remember, field 1 was the IP address, right? So you're doing the exact same thing, but this time you want to know who are the top 20 IPs that have been talking to me out of the last 5,000 lines. Oh, there we go. well, boy, 103.22.201.135, we need to go look at him and see why he keeps bugging us so much, right? So definitely pretty cool. And remember, the second line is just another way to do the exact same thing. Right here, right, for frequency in 1, right, loop through it and end, and for x in frequency, print x, right? And then sort it and show me the top 20 of them. There you go. Okay, now this one I really like. What's happening is here you're setting a variable. You're saying, okay, the IP address equals whatever I specify. Then I'm going to do the same line from above, right? So I want this many URLs requested from this IP. So you're going to do the tail 5,000, and you're going to grep for that IP address that you specified earlier. Then you're going to awk print and count them. Okay, so let's change this to one of these IPs. Let's grab this one. There we go. So I want to know how many times. Now this is telling me 34 times. Okay. Bam, and it shows me every request. See that? Very cool. Very, very, very cool. Okay. So you're seeing here, this is just, oh, we have a question? Let's see. Ah, Cloudflare Singapore. Yeah, you're right. You are right. Yeah, so there was definitely, you can see that I'm a big Cloudflare user. Okay, now let's grab our next one, and let's go with tail 5000 access log. We'll print field 11. These are the refers, right? And we'll truncate on this delimiter. Let's do that. Let's see, translate, squeeze, and or delete characters from standard input. Now, all this time I thought that was truncate, and it's translate. Huh. Shows you how much of them. You ever been doing something for a whole lot of years and then just realize you were wrong? Wow, I feel stupid. You know, for all these years I've been calling that the truncate command. And TR is translate. Good God. Oh well. Okay, so we'll go tail 5000, rip through the access log, give me field 11, and then I want to rip out this delimiter, right? So I want to get rid of the ones with the quotes, sort it, unique it, sort it, give me the top 20 of them. There we go. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. Okay, now why would you want the top referring pages? So basically what you want to know is, here's my top referring pages. These pages are the pages that my people are coming from the most. In other words, it's a way that you can figure out what people really like on your website, right? Or you can also figure out like, this is the page that I'm seeing people move from all the time. Okay, now we've already done the user, oh, we haven't done user agents. Oh, we did user agents a different way. Okay, so we'll do this and then we'll finish up and then we'll go to Cisco logs. Okay, so that truncate, you can do the cut-d, the same thing, and then say that you want this particular field number. Okay, now cut-d, the only thing you need to remember is it starts at 1, not starts at 0. So if you cut-d for a field number, the first field will be F1, not F0, right? Because, 99 times out of 100, whenever you do math stuff in a computer, the first number is 0. With the cut command, it's 1. So cut -d on this delimiter, this field number. Okay, it gives you all the same things that we were doing. So you're just seeing how this is one of the things that happens with Linux a lot, is it's just so many ways to do the same thing. Okay. All right. Now this last one is a data exfiltration trick. So you want to know who's sucking up the most bandwidth. So what you're doing here is you want to get that bytes transferred, right? And then here I'll say sum, right? Right, so sum plus equals is like add it to itself, right? And print the sum divided by this number, and that's what's going to give you a number of megabytes transferred. Okay. So sometimes what you start running into is, if you think you're dealing with a data exfiltration issue, you may want to look at, what IPs are sucking down the most bandwidth, and these are people who are slurping your website. So you've got people who are just recursively downloading stuff off your website. So you can actually see that this is actually a real problem that I had at the time. So when you notice I was moving to Cloudflare, people were killing my little server. So I had a VPS server, and people were killing the box. I mean, like, it just wasn't even funny. So I moved to Cloudflare. That put the load balancer in front of it. Then I moved all the download files to Amazon S3. And those two things combined are literally what saved my server. I used to put something on Twitter or do an email, and I mean, the server would go offline. Like, it would just DDoS and take my box offline. So once I moved to the CDN, Cloudflare, and then I moved the actual downloadable files to Amazon S3, all that pain kind of got taken off my little server. And now my server just serves files. Just makes the world so much easier. Okay, guys, what I'm thinking that we'll do is we'll take a little break. I'll stop the video. Let's take 15 minutes, and let's come back and jump right back on it. Okay, guys? All right, welcome back. Let's jump right on this next section. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so let's jump right on this next section, and that's Cisco log file analysis. Now, believe it or not, Cisco logs are actually, in my opinion, even easier than Apache logs. Really, because the bulk of what you're going to be getting from the device itself is status update stuff. Device up, device down, issues with this particular interface. That's really the bulk of it, because remember, they're permissive devices, they're not restrictive devices. So if it's a firewall, it's a restrictive device. It's going to let you know what it's blocking, what things it's having issues with, and saying, hey, I didn't let this go from here to here. If it's a firewall or a switch, it's going to be permissive stuff. So, really it's just going to be bandwidth, throughput, whatever's happening on any particular interface. Is the interface flapping? Are you getting babbles? Anything like that. So let's dive into that. You're going to see that still the same stuff that we did on Linux. So we want to start playing a little bit with regex, no, not too much, but we'll do a little. Okay, so we're going to wget down this log file. We're going to cat the log file and print field 5, then tail and show the last 4 lines of it, right? Then we'll cat, show field 5, sort it, unique it and count it, and then sort that. We'll do the same thing here where we want to start grepping for the way data needs to look. So you're saying I want to grep for A to Z, lowercase, A to Z, uppercase, and any number of them with the dash, and then a number with the dash, and then some more letters, right? So it's just kind of setting what you want the data to look like. And then you want field 5 out of that stuff, sort it, unique it, right? And then numeric sort. And then here, this grep line proto 5, right? You're trying to look for all the things where you're showing the device state change, right? And then you're doing the same thing, print field 10, sort them, unique them, right? Then we'll do a sed, right, where we replace some data, replace the comma with nothing, right? And then we'll look for the ones where the state changed, okay? So let's rip through some of this, guys. Okay, so I guess we need to get that log file, don't we? Okay, so yank down the log file. I guess it would be a good thing to put, oh, I did put it here. Duh, okay, it's there. All right, so here's where that log file line is. Go get the log file. I thought it wasn't in the paste bin. Okay, so I'm gonna yank down that log file. And now what we wanna do is we wanna cat the log file. Remember, cat is just to read, awk, and then I wanna print field 5, and then I wanna show the last 4 lines of it. So here's the last 4 lines, dhupd4, ping conflict, this is sys5 config I. Okay. Well, if I backspace through the last 4 lines, this is just everything that's in field 5. So you see how there's like SSH disabled, line proto up, down, right? Now there's some stuff that doesn't make sense. Do you see how sometimes there's software and Cisco and buy, right? Maybe that's stuff that we might want to clean up later. Now, if we want to take a look at the fields, let's see. First field, it says mostly set, but sometimes you see some stuff that doesn't line up right. Okay, I've got a 4, so it looks like that's September 4th, September 6th, September 14th, September 20th, so it looks like that's probably the date, separated by a space. Okay, here's the time. Okay, now here's where you're seeing sometimes the log format doesn't format properly, right? So you see how there's different, here's time, here's garbage, and then here's a date, when all the other cases it's back to being time. Okay, These are the kind of log files that are fun. Not. Okay, so let's go look at 4. Okay, so it's showing you by time zone, but here you see that there's garbage in here, right? So 5, and then here's the message of what happened at that particular time, right? Okay, is there a field 6? Let's see. Yep, there's a field 6. Okay, and it says line or protocol. Okay, so what we can do is we can pipe it to less. Let's take a look at the line. Okay, so September 4th at this time, Eastern time, line proto 5 did an up down line protocol on IP face, IPv6 state changed to up. Okay, can manage that. SSH has been disabled. Okay, I can manage that. Line protocol on that interface, change its state to up. The sucker's administratively down. Okay. All right. There you go. See that system restarted? So because the system restarted, that's why you have all this non-standard gobbledygook, because after the system restart, you got the info about the system restarting. Well, there you go. Well, that's kind of cool, but it's also going to jack up when you're trying to parse logs, because you can't just blindly say, I want what's in this field, because sometimes field 1 will be the word Cisco, right? Sometimes field 2 will be the word IIS, or sometimes field 1 will be the set date, sometimes field 2 will be the number here. So that kind of leads us to what we're going to be covering right now. So let's do the same stuff that we did earlier. So this time, I'm going to cat that Cisco log. I only want to print field 5. I want to sort it. I want to unique it and count it. That's the -C. And then I want to do a numeric sort, right? Put in the ones with the highest number counts at the top, right? There we go. So I got 8 of these line protocol up-downs. I got 3 of these system info messages, right? And I got 2 DHCP conflicts. I got a restart. I got 1 case where we enabled SSH. I got 1 case where we disabled SSH. And then these lines, this line right there, that's probably the restart. Okay. See, that's Cisco, bye. Those are probably the restarts. So you go, well, that's interesting. So now let's see if we can get rid of the restart info. All right, so how are we trying to get rid of the restart info? What I'm going to do is, do you see here, this is just the word software, this is just the word Cisco, this is just the word bye. So what you're going to do here is you're going to say, okay, I'm looking for any text, right? Any text that starts with a %sign. You see how it starts with a %sign? It's going to have some characters, and then there'll be a dash between them. Okay, so check this out. I'm looking for anything that starts with a %sign, has some characters. Then it's going to have a dash, a number, and a dash. Then after that, it's going to have some characters. So what you're going to say is, okay, I want to grep for the %sign anything that's lowercase a to z or uppercase a to z, and I don't care how many of them it is. That's what the asterisk is for. Then I want to have a dash, any number from 0 to 9, and another dash. followed by some more characters A to Z, lowercase, or some characters A to Z, uppercase, asterisk. And then keep everything else the same. And what you should notice is now it prints out your information without that Cisco and by and all that kind of stuff. In other words, you want to get fields that only have the data in it that you're looking for. You don't want the restart data. So you don't want this stuff. You don't want this stuff, okay? So that's what this little thing is doing. This is like a cute little regular expression. I wouldn't call it a real nice sophisticated regex, but it's a good little way to kind of get you started of thinking how to deal with this type of stuff in a log file. Now maybe you're just trying to look for cases where the interface changed states. You're like, hey, the interface changed state, right? And I'm really curious about that. And this is the kind of stuff that a lot of people want to know, right? In this case, the interface changed state. Maybe you only want the ones where it went down. Okay, so it's just that one case where it went down. I want to pipe it to WC-L. I only had one case where the sucker went down, right? But maybe I want to see how many times stuff went up. See, I got 7 instances of stuff going up, right? And that's most likely because I had some stuff in an up state, then I had a restart smack dab in the middle of it, right? Okay, so now I want to get this, but this time I want to do a quick replace. So here's sed, and what you're saying is I want to replace this string where there's a comma, and then I don't want to replace it with anything, and I want to do it globally throughout the whole file. So when you do this, that just puts these things in here. Okay, and this is print field 10. Now, how about I do this without that? There you go. Excuse me. So do you see how there's commas in here? There's a comma in here. So in every case, what you're saying is, hey, every time you see that comma, can you replace it with nothing? Now, if you wanted to, oh, we had a question. What does the percent sign mean again? Oh, the percent sign was just a field that was in the log file. Yeah, the percent sign was just literally what was there. It doesn't mean anything. It's just literally what was in the log file. Okay, so now here I'm going to go back through this, and I'm going to replace that comma with an exclamation point. So do you see how me changing that, every place where there was a comma, there's now an exclamation point. You see what sed is doing? I want to replace a string. I want to replace the comma with an exclamation point globally throughout the whole file. So for every one, now if you don't put the G right there globally, it'll only do one case of that. All right, let's grab this next one. Okay, so in this case, we're doing the same thing. We're removing the comma, but I want to get field 10, which is this, virtual access 1, right? And then I want to print the word change to field 14. So I want to count it, right? Sort it, unique it, and count it. One time virtual access 1 change to up, one time tunnel 0 change to down, one time NV, change to up, one time the loop back, one time loop back 10, right? One time IPv6 MPLS, right? So I'm taking, in this case, I want a sorted, right? Unique numeric sort, and then you want field 10, which is the name of whatever the device interface is, and then field 14, whatever the interface state is. And you're just saying, show me that. Okay. So I think you're going to see that this really isn't that bad, right? We did the Cisco log file earlier in the text file where you saw me doing the find replace, but at the end of the day, like whatever you want to see, it's not that bad, right? You just say, hey, these are the things I want. Now, what I would do if I were you is I would keep my hands on this log file, this paste bin, so that you could kind of cruise through stuff, and really do a whole lot more. All right. Let's stop right there. We'll stop Cisco. Let's take a quick 10-minute break. And then let's come back and let's do log analysis with Python. Okay, guys. So this time we're jumping right in, and we're going to do some log analysis with my favorite thing in the whole wide world, Python. I really like Python. Obviously, you guys know I love Python. I really like Python. So for me, it's just such an easy way to get in and dig through stuff. And there's a lot of cute little things that you can do with Python. And I really think it's kind of the next logical step up. Once you've been doing all that sed and awk and grep and cat stuff, you do that for a little while, and then I think you kind of want to take that next step and start writing little command line log parsers, little Python scripts to deal with your log files, and that's what we want to do right now. Okay, so we're going to deal with a real quick log file, and we're going to start seeing if we can deal with what are some basic data types in a log file, and well, I probably shouldn't say data types, but data structures, right? So I think the biggest thing that you're going to want to be able to deal with in Python is something called a list. A list, in most programming languages, you would probably call it an array, but an array is just a container, right? So you have a container where you put stuff in it. Let's say it's like your lunchbox, and you have your chips, your drink, your sandwich. You have your lunchbox, and you say, hey, give me number 1, and you're talking about your chips. Give me number 2 out of my lunchbox, and you're talking about your drink. Give me number 3 out of my lunchbox, and you're talking about your sandwich. Well, that's what a list is doing. So you read all of your data into a list, And then those items in that list, you can say, hey, give me number 1, give me number 2, give me number 3. So that's what we're going to do. So we'll start by getting down a log file. Then you'll just type the word Python. We're going to create this object. So we'll just say, oh, we'll create a variable f. We'll open this log file. We'll open it with the -r for read. And then we're going to create the object lines. And we'll say, okay, I want to go f.readLines equals lines. So I can print lines. And then with this, I can iterate through it, right? So lines 0, lines 10, lines 50, and it snatches up all the lines for me. Let's try it. Okay, oh, that's completely wrong, huh? Okay, yeah, this pastebin's going to change a lot. So I'm going to move all the Python stuff up in the pastebin so that it's right below the Cisco stuff. And then the PowerShell will be what we do next. And that'll be how we'll finish the class. So let's just make a quick edit. Okay. All right, so we're going to cover a lot more Python. So all right, so you got to just trust me now. Let's dive into some Python. I forgot I had planned to cover so much more. Okay, so let me cover some Python basics. This is what I was talking about, the data types. All right, so you're at your Linux command prompt, and what you want to do is you just want to type the word Python. So when you just type Python, do you see how you get these 3 arrows, these 3 greater than signs right here? That's what it's showing you right here. Now, whenever you want to clear your screen in Python, hit Control L as in Lincoln, Control L, and it clears my screen. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to print 1. And I can print anything, right? And print 2, print 200, right? Well, it's not a problem until I want to say that I want to print hello, right? And you guys see that it blows up. And it blows up because 1 is an integer and hello is a string. So as long as you're dealing with numbers, you can pretty much just talk to Python and say, hey, I'm dealing with numbers. Whenever I'm dealing with string, a block of text, you probably want to put it in quotes like this. Okay, so now he's handling that quote, he's handling that string just fine. So if I want to clear my screen, I say Control L, Now I want to print, and now I'm going to throw double quotes, left arrow. Today we are learning Python. So remember that rule. Remember that rule. Whenever we're dealing with numbers, leave numbers as is. Whenever we're dealing with words, put words in quotes. Those words, we call them strings. Those numbers, we call them integers. So let's just do some real quick math. 2 plus 2 is 4. 6 minus 3, right? 18 divided by 7. Now, did you guys notice 18 divided by 7, let's see, 2 times 7 is 14. So there's a remainder of 4. So it just gave me the whole number. Well, what Python is saying is whenever I'm dealing with whole numbers, give you back whole numbers. If I want to deal with numbers that have a decimal point, he'll always answer you back with numbers that have a decimal point. We call those floats. Now, if you want that remainder, remember how before we were dealing with the remainder of something? So if I go, hey, 18 divided by 7 is 2, but it should have a remainder of 4. What you would do is you would change that into a percent sign, and it'll give you that remainder. We call that modulus. So you want to divide this by this. So divide 18 by 7, but give me the remainder of it. That's modulus. So if you do 9 modulus 4, your remainder is 1. Okay. Other math stuff that you can do, let's say I do 6 point times 7. Well, because any number has a decimal point in it, he's always going to answer with decimals, right? If the numbers don't have decimal points, he'll answer without it. Now you can go 6 times 6 times 6, right? 6 to the third, or you can 6 star star 6, 6 to the third, right? And you can handle negative numbers that way as well, right? So you can -5, right, to the 4th power. Okay. All right. Next lesson, variables. Control L is how I clear my screen. A variable is just, I want to assign a number or a value to something. So in this case, I'm saying X, right? So X equals 18. When I print out X, he goes, okay, X is 18. Well, now I can work with that variable X plus 15. So 18 plus 15, that gives me 33. Now I can say X to the 3rd power, what I showed you earlier, right? Now, what if I said Y equals 54? Now I can go X plus Y, okay? Now, if you want to take in a number, right? Let's say I want to take in my age, and I'm going to input enter number, enter your age here. Oops, like this. So now it'll take in my age, okay? Now I can say my age, and my age is 40, right? My age plus, 21, right? And then you can also do your age to the 3rd, okay? Now, you need to remember that's a whole number. If I want to do the same thing and take in my name, you can't do it with input. Okay, I put in Joe, it's going to blow up. The reason is because input is for integers. Raw input is how you'll do numbers. So if I want to take in your first name, it's going to be raw underscore input. Right now it took it. Okay. So you got to remember that whenever you're dealing with strings are always either going to be in quotes, and you have to know that you're talking about strings. So this is one of those things that kind of messes people up when you first start getting started with Python. How do we deal with strings? How do we deal with integers? And it's usually when you start intermingling the two that stuff starts to blow up. 99 times out of 100, when I see beginners, that's the stuff that they mess up with, right? Improper use of quotes, right? Do I use a single quote here? Do I use a double quote here? Or intermingling numbers and strings, right? So if A equals 10 and B equals 40, you can do A plus B. But if A equals Joe, right, and B equals 10, you cannot do A plus B, right? You can't just say, hey, if I've got a string and an integer, let me combine them together, right? You can't do that. But what you can do is you can say, you know, A equals Joe and B equals McCrae, right? Now you can A plus B, right? Because the data types are the same, right? You can combine the two data types if the data types are the same, but you can't intermingle strings and numbers. So you got to get used to that early. If you can get used to that early, dealing with stuff in Python, you know, dealing with data isn't that bad. Okay, I'm going to skip lesson 4. Well, I'll cover it anyway. I'll do it fast. Okay, so I already showed you 5 to the 4th. One of the things you can do is you can say pow 5 comma 4. In other words, you have this power function, right? And inside of these parentheses, it takes your arguments or your parameters. So rather than 5 asterisk asterisk 4, you can say pow and in parentheses, right, 5 comma 4. You can also do other stuff like absolute value, right? So absolute value is just how far away you are from 0. So, you know, it's exactly 18. You can do like floor. Now you notice when I do floor, it's going to blow up, and that's because you need to import the math module, right? And now you can say math dot floor, and now you can put that number in it. And basically what floor does, it's kind of like rounds down, right? So I can math dot sqrt, right, square root. I'll do my 81, right? And now what if I want to assign a variable to it? What if I want sr? If I want sr to equal math dot square root, whoops. I want sr to equal math dot square root. Now I can sr and I can put numbers in there. So I can sr 81, and he says that's 9. So this is just me giving it a shortcut. Okay. All right. Okay, now the most important part, strings. Okay, so you're going to see me do this a lot. Let me make sure I cover this too. Single quote, left arrow. Double quote, left arrow. Left parent, right parent, left arrow. What does that mean? If I go single quote, left arrow. If I go double quote, left arrow. If I go left parent, right parent, left arrow, right? Single quote, left arrow. double quote, left arrow, left parent, right parent, left arrow, left bracket, right bracket, left arrow. You want to get in the habit of typing that way. Let's say, for example, you're going to say function, right? And I immediately do left parent, right parent, left arrow, right? Param1, comma, param2, right? You want to get in the habit of doing that. You want to say, string equals left single quote, left arrow, right? This is a string, right? If I do string 2, right? Double quote, left arrow. This is another string, right? Get in that habit of nesting quotes, parentheses, brackets. Get in that habit of doing that. You're going to feel like an idiot typing stuff out that way. But if you get in that habit, you'll start to notice that your code gets cleaner. And this is one of those things that, like I said, I see a lot of beginners mess up. Okay, so if I go double quote, left arrow, XSS, right? Single quote, left arrow, right? SQLI, right? Double quote, left arrow, Joe's a Python lover, right? Now if I go single quote, left arrow, Joe's, now we got a problem there, a Python lover. So here's our problem. If we have double quotes are literal, so it doesn't matter if I have a single quote in the middle. But in this case, I have double quotes, single quotes on the outside. So I'm going to need to put a slash right here because you want to escape this single quote. The problem is, if you don't do that, he's going to say, okay, here's the start of the string, here's the end of the string, in which case that leaves this guy as odd man out. So it'll blow up if you don't fix that. If I hit enter, it blows up right there. So the correct thing to do is to escape it like this. So I can say A equals double quote, left arrow, Joe, right? B equals double quote, left arrow, McCrae, right? Now I can A plus B, or I can A comma B, right? Not an issue displaying those records, right? But like I said, if C now equals 10, I can't A plus B plus C. It's going to blow up. You can't intermingle strings and numbers. All right. I know I'm going through a lot of lessons really fast. And the reason I'm going through a lot of lessons really fast is I want to hurry up and get to the logs. Okay. So only a few more lessons to cover. Okay, like 3 more lessons to cover. Okay, so now I'm going to break the rule I taught you. So what if I go num equals 10, right? Now I can num plus 2, that's working. But what if I do something like this? You see how I said the number of open ports found on this system is num. Okay, well, there's a problem because the number of open ports found on the system is in quotes, it's a string. Num, we've already seen it as an integer, so it's gonna blow up. I do that, that sucker blows up. Now what you can do is I can go num equals, and I can convert it to a string. Now I can run that whole line again, and he says the number of open ports found on this is this, right? I used to run into problems where you would say stuff like subnet equals, in quotes, 192.168.8 dot something, right? And then you wanted to make last octet equal 5. Yeah, no problem. I'll share the recording, buddy. Now I want to make last octet equal 5. You can't add subnet, right, plus last octet, right? They blow up. But what you can do is you can take last octet and you can string that sucker like that. Now you can put them together and you have a full IP address. I run into this in situations where you're iterating through a list of numbers and you want to take, you've got a range, you want to iterate through a list of numbers and create IP addresses out of it. You run into this kind of stuff, you just need to realize, because it's got dots in it, it's not a real number. It's got multiple dots in it. It's not a floating point. It's not an integer. You got to treat it as a string. These are those little things that you need to know when you're trying to write log parsers. So now that we've turned num into a string, now we can do stuff where we say like, okay, there are num vulnerabilities found in this environment. You can see it now shows up properly. Okay, now we're starting to get to some stuff that's useful. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a list. Anytime you put something in brackets, Python calls it a list. So right here, if I say attacks, you can see that I've got a stack overflow, heap overflow, integer overflow, right? So here's my list of attacks. If I want to throw brackets here, left bracket, right bracket, left arrow, and I want the very first one, that's the stack overflow. If I want the second one, right, there's the heap overflow. Now, if I do -1, I want the last one, right? If I do -2, I want the next over from the last one, right? You're reading this way now. So it gives you a way that you can say, okay, I want to read these things into a list, and then for each one of these, I want to be able to talk to or grab each one of these, right? Play with whichever one I want. Okay, last construct, and then we can finally get into some labs. Finally, we're done. Woo, no more basics. Okay, so let's say I create an attack, and the attack is double quote, left arrow, SQL injection, right? Now, if I say if attack, right, equals SQL injection, right, do something. Now, Python uses tabs. So whenever I have a colon, you see those 3 dots? That's letting me know I need to tab over. So I use my tab key, tab over, and I'll say print the attacker is using. Okay, now if I up and change attack to something else, so here I've now changed attack to no longer be SQL injection. Now attack is XSS. Now as soon as I run this, nothing happened, right? Because the attack is not SQL injection. In this case, the attack is cross-site scripting. So how does all that work? You know, you got to kind of like wrap your head around like, okay, if this case is true, say this. Well, that's kind of what's important in log files, because like you want to be able to look through log files and go, well, if I see this, let me know, right? You see this line, you see select something, 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 let me know, hey, that's SQL injection. You do script alert, something, 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 hey man, let me know that's cross-site scripting. And that's really what you're kind of doing in a log file. So now when you want to pop out of Python, you just exit, left parent, right parent. We get down here in these lines, line 423 in my case, I'll grab that log file again. Well, actually, I already have it, but you guys will get it. Let's say I want to read the log file and look for a particular IP address. Okay, so that IP address 141.101.80.188 shows up in that log file 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like 4 or 5 times, right? Now I can do that. I can pipe wc-l, and you can see, yep, it's in there 5 times. I can do the same thing for this IP address. Okay, yep, it's in there. How many times is it in there? Okay, it's in there 7 times. Well, definitely cool, but something that's of interest is Python has the ability to do something called read line or read lines. So what I would tell you to do is, if you're trying to learn this in Python, you can Google Python read file, Python read line, Python read from file. You Google that and you'll find some real down and dirty tutorials. I think they're great tutorials for how to read from log files, how to read from files flat out. So here's a really good reference. This link right here. Great reference for how to read a file in Python, right? Super, super handy. So I'm going to do this. Let's go with Python. And now let's mess with that log file. So I'm going to fopen. Finally, what I was trying to show you in the PowerPoint, huh? So I'll fopen that log file, and I'll open that log file as an R. So it's got the read attribute. If it was RW, it would be read write. If it was just W, it would be write. So I want to read this log file. Now I'm going to say lines equals f.read lines. Now what that does, read lines takes in every line of a file and makes it an element in the list. So Control L clears my screen. Let's look at what I've done so far. These are my only 2 lines. So f equals open, in parentheses, access log, read, lines equals f.read lines. So now I can go lines, yeah, I'll just do lines, blows them all out there, right? Control L cleans my screen. If I want to print them, right? Control L cleans my screen. Now what if I go lines, left bracket, right bracket, left arrow, 0, right? There's my first line, right? 10, 10th line, 50, 50th line, 500, 1,000, and 10,000. So you can see each of these various lines. Now I can say, you know, what's the length of lines, right? And you can see, it's 11,756. Same thing that you saw me do when I did that WC-L in my previous stuff, right? Now, you can make a simple Python script to do that, so I can exit, right? vi log read. Let's go log read 1, yeah? Right, so it's the exact same thing, right? So user bin env python, right? F equals open, I open up that access log. Lines equals f dot read lines, print the lines, then close that object, right? So this is just doing the exact same thing. Okay, that's all it's doing. Okay. Now what you're going to see is I'm going to give you a couple of hints. Okay. I'd like you to be able to write something that can look through a log file and tell me if a particular IP address is in the log file or not. So say I want to be able to give you a log file and you say, yes, this IP address is in the log file or not. And let's just start with that. So if you say use Python to look for a value in a list, right? If I already showed you how to read a log file into a list, then a good hint would be, how do you look for a value in a list, right? Another hint would be, how do you prompt for user input? Now, I showed you the difference between input and raw underscore input. Input is how you take in integers. Raw underscore input is how you prompt for a string. It's how you take in a string. Then how do you search for a string in a list, right? So how do you check to see if an item is in a list? So here's a possible solution. F equals open, read the log. Lines equals f dot read lines. We've already done that. Here's the IP address for string in lines. If the IP is in this string, print the string. It's a nice little down and dirty one-liner. Let's give it a shot. Okay, let's take a look at that. So F, open the access log, open it as read. Lines equals f.read lines. IP, here's the IP address. For string in lines. So you're saying for this string in this list of lines, if this IP address is in the string, print the string. So I hit enter, and now it prints out every case where that IP address was. Okay. Now you can do the same thing, right? Maybe in there you want to put a list of SQL injections and buffer overflow strings and all of that, and you can just write a tiny little command line IDS where he looks through logs and um, it's got a list of attacks. So all an IDS is just, do I see any of these in my log files, right? So you can write a little command line log parser that takes a list of attacks and tries to see if it sees any of them in your in your log file database, right? Okay. Okay, so here's another solution. Okay, so what's going on here, we're going to start with user bin Python. We're going to open the log file just like we always do. Now you're going to say, okay, string user input. Okay, you allow the guy to enter in his IP address. Now you're going to say for line and iter f, so iterate through your log file. The IP line split, there's a space, a dash, and a space, and you want the field on the left, field 0. So when you look at a log file, you've got the IP address, then you've got a space, dash, space. Now if you want field 0, this is field 0. Because you have a dash and a space on both sides. Okay, so let's rip through this. Exit out on VI log read 2. No. Let's make it log read 3 in my case. And I'm going to paste all this stuff in it. So this is the really cute trick. Line.split right there and call that the IP. That's the real kung fu. You saw that space dash space and you said that is the delimiter. So every time I see that, know that whatever's to the left of it, field 0, is the IP address. If the IP equates to what user input that the user typed, print the line. Now we just need to give it an IP address. Okay, there's our IP address, and he prints out the lines with that individual IP address. Really simple log parser. And you can do this for anything, like if you want user agents, if you want query strings, if you want, SQL injection or cross-site scripting or whatever, really not that hard. Okay. Okay, let's go through this line. All right. So it starts off with Python. It's the interpreter. We've already covered this, right? Open the log file for reading. We want to take each element, right, every single line, and store it in a list. That's what this is here. Now, take in that user input, right? We always do that with raw input. And now, for IP inlines, if IP.find, right? And then we look for IP. If it's not -1, in other words, if it's valid, print the IP. There we go. Print out every log, every log entry that had it. All right. Okay, covered that one. Covered that one. Covered this one. All right, let's take a break. Let's come back with some PowerShell. I need to write some notes down here. There we go. All right, guys, let's do a half hour. That way we got a little time to grab a little bite to eat for lunch. We'll come back and we'll do PowerShell. PowerShell, you're going to want this VM. Now, I made some changes so that the VM is not required. So if you just have a Windows 7 machine or higher, obviously, because it's PowerShell, you can use this, okay? All right, guys, I'll see you in about a half hour. Okay. Now, guys, when I'm in my virtual machine, it's really hard for me to see the questions. So sometimes you'll see me have to minimize my virtual machine so I can see what you guys are asking me. All right, guys, let's jump right back in it. We're going to start with PowerShell. So we're going to move over to Windows log file analysis. So with Windows log file analysis, I'm going to be inside of my Windows 7 virtual machine. So I'm inside of my Windows 7 virtual machine, and what I want to do is I want to run PowerShell as an administrator. So you just fire up PowerShell as an administrator. It's going to give you a nice little command prompt, just like so. Now the big thing that you want to notice with your PowerShell command prompt is how similar it is to your traditional command prompt. So say, for example, you want to do like a dir command. Let me cd into the C drive, right? dir, right? My cls command, ls command, right? So everything is pretty much the same. Actually, it's not even freaking close. Once you get beyond those few commands, PowerShell is nothing like the Windows command prompt. Basically, they pulled a few of the old commands so that you can kind of wet your whistle when you're driving around. Beyond that, PowerShell is really just a mashed down version of C#. So let's get our head around what you can do with PowerShell. So I want to clear my screen. Now what we want to do is we want to say get command. Now if you guys notice how I typed it, I went get dash com. This is all I have, and it's all lowercase. Now watch when I hit my tab key. Do you see how it gets capitalized for me? Okay, get dash command. So the get command gives me my list of commandlets. Okay, now you have to show this because, what the heck? Come on, computer. There we go. So you get your list of commandlets. Now, if you try, dir/question mark, like what you used to do back in the old days, that sucker just flat out doesn't work. Right? You always used to be able to do the command name /question mark. You're just not going to find that that works anymore. I'm trying to close the command prompt. This just doesn't work anymore. So if you want to get the help on a particular command, so let's do get command, and then that gives you the list of commandlets. So they're not called commands anymore. In PowerShell, they're commandlets. They're actual PowerShell programs that do command line tasks. So let's say, an old alias was the Windows command type, right? But if you see, that is now a PowerShell commandlet for get content. Type used to be how you read a file. I can't read there. Okay, so now what you used to do is you used to type the file, right? So all I did was I just cd to my command prompt and cd to my desktop, and I said, okay, let me echo the word hello into a file called hello.txt. And then when I want to read the file, the Unix command would be cat, the file name. The Windows command was type, the file name. Well, in PowerShell, right, if you type something, well, let's go to cd :users workshop desktop. Now you want to type hello.txt. Do you notice how that immediately did the Unix thing, put a dot and a slash in front of it, slash being the Windows slash the opposite way, to show that it's in the current directory, and then it read the contents of the file. But if you get alias on the type command, you'll see that it's actually running the PowerShell commandlet get content. So that's how you're actually reading the file. You're not really running those old commands anymore. Most of that stuff is aliased. If you want to see the list of aliases, right, you can do a get list of aliases. So here's all of the old Windows commands. They're all PowerShell scripts now. We call them commandlets. So if you want to get help on a particular command, you want to get, command on any particular command or a particular commandlet. So if I get command on a particular command that I'm interested in, that's like running the old /?, and it lets you know, like, here's the information about that command. Okay, and some other stuff that you can do with PowerShell, some stuff that I actually thought was pretty cool. So let's say you want to do a get process. So if I do a get process, it's just like the old Windows command task list, right? It's like the old Windows command task list. You get a list of all the running processes, right? The difference is you can do a get process and pipe it into stop process. Pretty freaking cool, huh? Now, what I really like is to have this get process pipe it into stop process. Now you can say dash what if. So dash what if is going to be like, hey man, if I run this, what's it actually going to do? And I think you're going to see, I don't think we want to kill all these processes. It'll probably kill the box. But I really like this what if command. Whoever came up with that, good job. Excuse me. Now, you can always get help on a particular command. So if you want to get help on a particular command, that gives you the full help on the command. Excuse me. If you want to get help on that command, you can also get help on that command --online. Now, the online part, I know you wouldn't think that it's a big deal, but it actually is a big deal. The reason I say that is you're going to often find that PowerShell gets updated a lot. I'm not kidding, a lot. Not uncommon to see updates to PowerShell every few months. So you definitely want to be checking online when you're trying to run commands with PowerShell. You'll definitely find sometimes old versions of commands don't work. Syntax is now changed, or this command only works in this version of PowerShell kind of stuff. So always know that you can look it up online for the most current information. Okay, some stuff that's actually pretty cool with PowerShell. So let's say, for example, I want to get service, right? Now, if I do a get service, here's the list of running services, right? Now I can say, let me get service dash name. Let me grab the term service and the spooler service. So here's my two running services that I was interested in, the term service and the spooler service. Now, let me say $serve equals, let's go get service, spooler. Now, whenever I do $serve, you can see that this new variable has been assigned to this surface. Now, this is what I really like about PowerShell, and I'm not a big fan of Windows stuff, but you can assign a variable to pretty much anything. So I can assign a variable to a file handle, I can assign a variable to a commandlet, and interact with it just like I'm talking to any other variable. So now the methods that come out of it, right, your object method instance, right, you see how now I'm just tabbing through all the options that I have. So you just say dot, and now anything that I want to list, I can now see what options that I have with it. Okay, definitely really cool. Now, if you want to get the list of all these items, just do a $serve, right? Pipe, and pipe it to get member. If you pipe it to get member, this gives you the list of what all those options mean, right? So now you can figure it out. Is it an alias? Is it a method? Is it a property? And what's the definition of it? It really allows you to start figuring out stuff and what you can do with that. Okay, really, really handy stuff. Okay. Now, again, I don't want to go too deep into this, but I need to cover just a few of these things because you'd be surprised just how freaking handy PowerShell is. So let's say I want to do $serve, right? And I want to grab the status of that service. You can see that it's running. What if I want to stop it? Okay, now if I check the status, it still says running. What you want to do is you want to refresh it. Now when I refresh it, I check the status, you can see that it's stopped. If I want to start that joker, now if I check the status, it still says stop. You're always going to need to refresh it so you can see the status when you make some of these modifications, specifically with services. Okay. Outside of that, pretty much everything's near real time. Services is the only thing where I've seen I've actually needed to like refresh properties to figure stuff out. Pretty much everything else runs pretty much natively. Outside of that, pretty much everything in PowerShell is just like any other programming language. You know, what's a string, what's an int. You're definitely going to need to get into object-oriented thought for your messing with PowerShell. You definitely are going to need to do that, but I'll try to keep that to a minimum. Okay, so the really cool thing that you can do with your Windows event logs is you literally can dump them into XML. PowerShell natively manages XML. So you can say get event log and then say, okay, well, I want the event log to be the application log. So you just say get event log and then the log name, whether you want the application log, the system log, or the security log. Then you can pipe it to export CLI XML. Export CLI XML. Really, really cool. Now, what you're going to see me do after I do that, right in here is where I do this export CLI XML. I'm going to export it as app log, and then we can read the app log. Then I can create a variable called logs, and then I can say, okay, the logs equals system, application, and security. And then you can use the % symbol, right, as an alias. This is different than that Cisco log you saw me do a while ago, right? Here, that % is going to be an alias for the for each object. So you want to say, well, for each of these in this list, do this, okay? So now the problem with copying and pasting out of Internet Explorer is it gets line numbers. All right, so what I'm doing right now, I deleted my line number 749 up at the top. And now it's going to get the event log, get the event log. The log name I want is the application log. Then I want to export CLI XML, right? There's another PowerShell commandlet. And then here's what I actually want to call the file. I want to call it applog.xml. So now it's dropped me to another command prompt. I want to type, that's how you read a file, right? And now here you can read that whole log file. And you see how the log file is broken out as XML. Super handy. Now I'm going to do another little trick. This is a trick that I really like. Really? Okay, so I'm going to do another little trick, and I'm going to say logs equals system, application, and security. Then, remember that for each trick I was telling you about? I'm going to say $logs. I'm going to use the same syntax you just saw me do. $logs. Now here's that pipe %. That's letting you know there's my for each trick. Now you're going to do a get event log. Now this $_ is for each of these. So you're going to have a system, you're going to have an application one, and you're going to have a security one. And for every single one of those, you want to export CLI XML with that particular name, .xml. So you'll have a system.xml, application.xml, security.xml, right? So these two lines gives you all of your log files exported as XML. Okay, that's going to take a little while. Okay, so while that's running, okay. So while that's running, it's still running, so I'm going to turn around and I'm going to say seglog for security log. I'm going to turn it into a variable, seglog, and say import CLI XML. So instead of export, now I want to import that XML file that's going to be created. And now I can say seglog and give me the last 5. This is kind of like in Linux when I said I want to tail the last 5. Now, one of my students, his name is Adam, he showed me a really cool trick in my last class. I thought this was freaking amazing. He says, okay, let's say you want to do a get event log application. So this snatches the application logs, but you want to say you want that after get date dot add days -1. So you can use this before and after to filter date ranges. So this way you can get just the logs for the last 24 hours and get just the application logs for the last 24 hours. I thought that was a really cool trick. Okay, so that's all run for me now. So now what I'm going to say is $seglog, right, equals import CLI XML security.xml. So I'll suck all that stuff into my variable, right? And now I'm just going to say seclog, right? And then we pipe it into select last 5, right? And this gives me my last 5 entries. Now we can do Adam's trick. Excuse me. So I can get event log application, get the application logs anytime after get day -1. Really cool trick. Now, if you want to drill down into any particular properties of the log file, you can do like this. So I want to say select log, then I want to do select first, right? So select the first one, and then I can pipe it to this FL asterisk, and this will allow me to move through it. I'm sorry, that's not FL, that's F1. Pretty sure that's F1. Let's see. So let's go $seclog. Yeah, give me the first one, and then you want to expand it. Yeah, see, that's a compressed log. But if you pipe it to that FL asterisk, right, it gets you the entire log, the full log, that particular event. Now, if you want the message property, that way you get the SID, the account information, domain privileges, and all that kind of stuff, you can do it this way. So we'll go left parent, right parent, left arrow, $seclog pipe select dash first one, right? At the end of it, .message, right? And that'll give you that whole message for that particular event. Now, if you need to know what the data type is, let's say you're going to be programming and using this data, right? You can add get type to the end of it, right? This has been really cool. So if you're programming and later on you need to know, is it a string, is it an integer, is it a float, what is it? You know, you can always do .get type in parentheses, and it'll tell you exactly what the data type for that field is. Really helpful for programming later on when you need to say, hey, I need to write code that messes with this. Okay, so in the Unix world, you usually want to get like a count of something. You know, the way that you saw me do like WC-L, and definitely cool, definitely important to know how to do. For me, PowerShell, the difference was, I guess I was just so much more comfortable with Linux. It was really just learning a lot of syntax. Kind of a different way of thinking, to be honest. Excuse me, a little parched, hard to get a drink there. So here you're going to see me say seclog, question mark, and then right here, this is so we can iterate through, then message match. So that $underbar is how you iterate through each one. Then I want to match, right? Iterate through each message and match the one that say SE security privilege, and I want to count them. So in PowerShell, you don't dash count, you pipe to measure. Now, we can do the same thing and we can group by their individual event IDs. We'll go setlog. All right, so here we want to get a count. So it looks like we got 1,357 SE security privilege events. Now, if we want to do that again, this time we want to group them by their event ID. So we'll group them by event ID. And now you can see, all right, looks like they're all in these groups, right? System.diagnostics event log entry, system.diagnostics event log entry, right? That's what they all are. Now, if we need to just get a raw count, you can actually seclog dot count like this, right? You get an actual count of the number of entries in that security log, but we were specifically looking for a certain type of event. That's why it was easier to just say get the privilege that you're get the type of thing that you want, and then just say measure them. Okay, I think we've been going for a while. I'm going to push through. I'm going to keep pushing. So what we're going to do right here is I'm going to deal with a type of log is it? Yeah, it's a Cisco log. All right, so my PowerShell directory is already created, so I'm going to cd into my PS directory, and you'll see that I have a Cisco log file example, but I need to grab u_ex1104 is that log file, and that's it right there. Right now, PowerShell has a utility that's kind of like wget, so you can say like this: new-object system.net.webclient.download file, and then inside of parentheses and quotes, put the file that you want. And then you just specify where you want the file to be saved to. So you're going to use this in your pen testing too, right? It's kind of like a way when you get on a machine, you use PowerShell, you put in that, and that's a way that you can like wget down a file in PowerShell as well when you're pen testing. So this is us downloading a log file to the PS directory. And now let's go through that log file. What I'm going to do is the same way that you grep for a file, we're just going to say select string. So you can say select string the same way that I grep for a file. So rather than grep, it's select string. It's basically the PowerShell version of grep. So I'm saying select string this IP address out of that log file. Now, if you want to pipe it to select line, right, whoops, select string, pipe, select line. Well, did I do that right? Is it select dash line? Select string, yep, okay, it worked. Then pipe select line, so it'll look like that. Now, if you want to count them, you can measure. Looks like it's 64 of those. Okay, so let's do the same thing, and this time let's go ahead, let's do a measure object. Okay. Now, let's see if we can play with a little regex. Okay, so this time I'm going to do a select string. Now I've got question mark something, that's a number, 1 to 3, and then a period. Question mark, okay, and it's three numbers. That's another 1 to 3. Then you're going to expand the property, right, and show the matches, and then select expand property value, sort object, unique it, and measure it. So what you're saying is, this is how you find the first octet of an IP address, the second octet of an IP address in the log file. Then you want to get the expanded property. So in each one that has an expanded property that matches, show me that, and then select that expanded property value, sort it, unique it, and then count it. So really what I'm trying to do here was, when I was trying to learn this stuff, I had to keep asking PowerShell people, how do I do in PowerShell what I do in Linux, right? Because I would sort, unique dash C, then sort dash NR. This is kind of the PowerShell-y way of doing that same thing. So let's go ahead and let's select string. There we go. 9 of them bad boys. Now, if I get rid of that and just make it show me those, boom, there's the IP addresses, right? Now, if I remove the uniques, right, boom, you'll get all those. They're not deduped, right? Okay, so here's each individual entry, right? And you can see that it's a success, and then it'll capture and the index and the link. But I just wanted that one little property value, and the property value was the IP address itself. That's the reason why we were doing that expand the property value. So you said, okay, the property is called value. So that's the reason I said, okay, select and then expand that property and let me just look at value. Okay, we've already done that. Determine the IP address that have the most communication. The last commands are removed. And then we'll put them in descending order. Okay, so this is pretty similar. In this case, what we're trying to do is just look for the ones that are kind of the top talkers. Basically what you saw us do in Linux, right? Which ones are my top talkers? Come on, command prompt, come back to me. Sorry guys, my computer's having a stupid attack. Hello? Computer, come back. All right. Whew. Thought I lost it for a little while. Here we go. All right. So that's the IP address that's been my most annoying little bugger, huh? He's been a busy little beaver. Okay, let's skip that. Skip that. Okay, well, that was the Cisco log. Let's jump back and let's go to the IIS log. So the IIS log, that's the Windows web server, right? Internet Information Server, IIS, versus Apache or Nginx. So we've got this U_EX1104 log file in there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a get content, right? So this is kind of like cat. So let me get content. And now what I'm saying is rip through all the log files, get content of everything that's a log file, and rip through each one. And for every one of those log files, select the ones that have the string webdav in them. Webdav is something you would look for, right? Webdav is one of the ways that people upload malicious files to a web server. So you definitely would look for webdav entries in IIS logs, right? You would look for webdav and you would look for the put method, right? Because these are ways that people upload content to the web server, oftentimes unauthenticated too, by the way. Now, if you wanted to deal with Outlook Web Access, you would just change that from webdav to OWA, right? And that would get you all the Outlook Web Access. You could change it to ECP. So whatever type of entry you're looking for, that would be how you would dig through those. Now, if we want to turn around and count, those webdav entries, let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do it this way. I don't think I'm going to have any EWS, so I don't think this is going to display. There we go. Yeah, I didn't have any EWS stuff in there. That's not a good example because there was nothing in the log file. Okay. All right, strike that from the record. The last entry, we're not going to count that. But that should be enough for you to kind of see like how to rip through logs. If you just use these couple of little things, I think you're going to find that you can do a pretty healthy amount of log file analysis. I mean, you really, really can. Okay, I covered that. All right, so let's wrap this joker up. So right here, if you want to be able to follow along with everything that I've covered, this is the paste bin for the entire class. I really think we did pretty good. And for you guys who are strategic security users, we're probably going to do another version of this. I was thinking of doing one that's command line malware analysis. Kind of curious what you guys think of that, like doing like volatility and stuff like that. What do you guys think? What would be a little bit more interesting for the next time around? You want to do like command line malware? So it would be static malware analysis. It wouldn't be dynamic stuff. Okay. Yeah, so you drop a piece of malware into the folder, and it's just a series of things that you run against it from a command line. And then we'll probably do both PCAP analysis and malicious file analysis at a command line is what I'm thinking. So I'm thinking I'll do another class just like today, and it'll be purely command line malware, right? Malicious files. We'll do like malicious PDFs, malicious Office documents with like macros in them, and then we'll do malicious PCAPs as well. You guys cool with that? All right, looks like we got a few people saying let's do that. All right. Well, guys, I think we've had a wonderful Saturday. I really thought this stuff would take me a lot longer to get through. We got through that pretty fast. You guys are too smart. You didn't have enough questions. Maybe that means I'm not a good enough teacher. I need to up my game and not explain things so well. Okay, guys, let's wrap this sucker up. Let me start setting up the videos. It's going to take me about 2 to 3 hours to get all these videos converted and uploaded, but I'll get them converted, uploaded, and mailed out to you for all you strategic security guys. For all you Pen Tester Academy guys, I really hope you like this video series. I really hope it was helpful. Vivek has asked me to keep doing them each month, so I'll be putting out a series of videos each month for Pen Tester Academy from now on. And from my side of the house, do you get CPEs? The answer is yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Okay. All right, guys, I'm going to button this up, stick the fork in it. Looks like we're done. And I really can't wait to see you guys on my next class. So thanks for everything, guys. We'll see you soon.